With the release of Captain America Brave New World, it's now time to rank all 8 Captain America movies. Let's get started. And this list will not only include the MCU Captain America movies, but we're also going to include movies from 1944 all the way to the present. So if you've seen all these movies too, or just want to do the MCU ones, you can leave your ranking down below in the comment section. And with that, let's begin. Now to me, for this 1979 version of Captain America, this does not feel like Captain America. Captain America, or Steve Rogers, has a pure heart. He has a heart to become the super soldier that he is. But this version of Steve Rogers doesn't have that heart that he needs to become Captain America. So when you're watching the movie, it's basically just some guy who had a past who becomes Captain America. He didn't earn it the way that Steve Rogers did, or even Sam Wilson. And the movie itself isn't any better. The acting is laugh out loud bad. You can just tell this was made for TV because this movie was. It shows. It shows in the movie itself that it was made for TV because everything is just laugh out loud bad. And the movie is just a big old cheap movie because, like I said, it's made for TV. Obviously, it's not a Hollywood budget. But did they even try for the costume or anything? The shield Captain America has is literally plastic. You can tell when watching the movie, it's plastic. And this costume looks like some onesie that you could buy from Target right now. But although this movie was made on a cheap budget, nothing looks real. The story isn't any better either, it's just a planned story. Captain America doesn't become Captain America till the last 30 minutes of the movie. So just throughout the entire thing, you're just sitting through it, waiting for it to end, making it the worst Captain America movie we have gotten. Following, we have the sequel to the 1979 version of Captain America. This movie has the exact same problems. The only pro that's not really the same problem is that the story is better. I feel like the story of this movie matches more Captain America. It feels more like a Captain America story. Now the movie starts with like a side quest helping a grandma, but once we get past that, there's like this serum, and it kind of seemed more like a Captain America movie than the first one did. And we at least get a more accurate costume. It still looks like a onesie, and he still has a plastic shield, but the costume is a bit more accurate. But other than those pros, the movie is the exact same problems, and is almost the exact same movie that the first one was. I do feel like this one is harder to sit through, but the story makes up for that for being a more accurate story to Captain America. The story's not good. Neither of these two movies are good, but this one's if I were to pick one to rewatch, this one would be the one I would prefer to rewatch. Now, Captain America 1990, this version does a better job at capturing the character. The previous two movies, like I stated before, didn't really know what the character was and wasn't really true to the comics or the MCU. This time around, I feel like this version is more accurate because we actually get a story that's focused around Captain America, and Steve Rogers himself actually feels like Captain America. But with all that said, this is still not a great movie. It's better than the previous two, but the movie is still bad. It's another boring and hard to sit through movie of Captain America with just another planned story. Now, the story in this, again, is more accurate than the previous two, which makes it a bit better, but it's still boring. Script is bad, and they're never really to fully capture what the MCU does. Now, comparing this to the MCU isn't really fair because that's like a full 30 years later. But it was still never able to capture what it needed to. And because of that, there's a bunch of story problems that follow that. Could have been a lot worse. (1944). That is 81 years ago. That's how old this movie is. This movie is basically an entire TV show in 4 hours. That's what this movie is, and it's extremely old. Now, there's a few things that stand out to me, but that's only in the first 45 minutes. The rest of the movie or show is extremely slow. The first 45 minutes kind of hook you in and you're kind of getting invested in this black and white version of Captain America, but after that, story falls apart, but it falls apart 45 minutes in. there's still 3 hours and 20 minutes left in this. But what does make this more enjoyable is that it's 81 years old, so you can make fun of it, and then watching it, you can tell that's 81 years old because it's black and white. Weird set designs, weird things they do. You can definitely tell it's 81 years old, and it's just fun to make fun of. But for 4 hours though, that's kind of pushing it. It's funny how every episode kind of ends with Captain America dying, but then the next episode it shows how he didn't die. Kind of weird how they do that, but maybe at the time that was the way of hooking the viewers in, but now watching it, you can tell it just didn't age well, just like the entire movie. The interpretation of Captain America isn't the best either. Now, this was the time where Marvel Comics was just becoming a thing, but Captain America doesn't have a shield, he's not a super soldier, he's just a guy in a costume. That's what Captain America is in this, and you get 4 hours of that. But it is better than all the previous Captain America movies because I feel like I said, this is kind of like a make fun of movie, and story's better than the rest. That's where we get Brave New World. Now, this movie isn't bad, but it's not great either. Now, it's nice to finally see Sam Wilson as Captain America. We finally get a movie featuring Sam Wilson. And I do like the Winter Soldier type of vibes in here. That detective whodunit story is a standout of this movie. And I just like the new Falcon as well and his interactions with Sam Wilson and see their banter back and forth. But this movie could have been way better. You can definitely feel the reshoots holding this movie back. The entire movie is just choppy and just a bunch of writing problems and a chopped up movie. You can definitely tell from the reshoots what this movie went through. And like the first few action scenes in this movie too are filmed at this weird angle that they just don't come out enjoyable. The last two are good, but the first few are kind of bad. And this movie has a huge pacing problem. The entire movie felt at least 2.5 hours instead of 1 hour and 40 minutes. The movie's dragging on and dragging on. Now, the first 30 minutes of the movie flew by, but then the rest stopped and just completely dragged on and kind of overstayed its welcome, and there was definitely a way to make the movie feel faster. But Brave New World, huge disappointment, and could have been a great introduction to the movies for Sam Wilson of Captain America. Hopefully, the rest of the movies for this version of Captain America is a lot better, because Sam Wilson deserves better. Now, just for point of reference, there is a huge gap between Brave New World and First Avenger. Now, I was always a defender for this movie. It serves as the best possible origin you could do for Steve Rogers' Captain America. As we've seen for the previous movies in the 90s, 40s, 70s, they didn't really know how to capture Captain America until the MCU came along, and they were able to bring the best possible version of Captain America they could have brought, and showed why he's one of the best characters in the MCU. And they were able to take a B-tier character that not a lot of people knew and made him an S-tier character that everyone loved and adored, and is now one of the most popular Marvel characters thanks to the MCU. This movie also sets up the arc of Steve Rogers and what he will have throughout the rest of his movies and the rest of the MCU, and finds a way to bring it back to this movie and pay it off later down the line. Although I do love this movie, it is the weakest out of the Captain America trilogy that we got with Steve Rogers, and that's only because Winter Soldier and Civil War are on an entirely different level of greatness. This one's still great and I love it, but those ones are just on a different tier. This movie serves as the perfect sequel to the first Avenger, but is also to make a significantly better movie than what the first Captain America brought, by bringing its spy kind of story to it and end up making one of the best MCU movies there is. In this movie, we get some of the best action scenes that we have gotten in the entire MCU. The elevator scene with Captain America against Hydra, that's a standout to me. The final battle against Captain America and Bucky, that's a standout to me. And there's just a bunch of different angles they do with the action to make it compelling and thrilling, and you're just hooked into the action the entire time, and bring some of the best action we have gotten in the MCU. We also get some great character arcs in this. When that comes down to Nick Fury or some other characters, it's a big standout. Especially Nick Fury, I feel like that's where it stands out the most with the character arcs, but the character arcs heavy in here. Although this is in second place, it's still a great movie. 5 out of 5 for me. But first place is just more meaningful to me. The best Captain America movie by far for me. Although second place and first place are 5 out of 5 movies, Civil War is just able to bring more emotion that the Winter Soldier wasn't fully able to capture, because Civil War has set up thanks to all the previous MCU movies. Events in this movie wouldn't have the same impact without the previous MCU movies, because thanks to those previous movies, we're able to see each character's side in the situation. Each side of the situation wouldn't have the same impact without those movies. We're able to see each Avenger's perspective and how they deal with the situation. And it's all meaningful by the end of the movie when Iron Man and Captain America face off against each other and how we see a friendship crumble to pieces. This movie also doesn't stand as a Avengers 2.5. It continues Captain America's and Bucky's storyline. This essentially feels like a Winter Soldier 2 because that's what it is. It still is a Captain America movie. It's not fully a Avengers movie. They're just in it because of the plot. They don't feel forced in whatsoever. But this movie does continue Captain America's and Bucky's storyline. I do feel like the villain in this movie is very underrated. All because of their motive is why they're a great villain. Their motive is to break up the Avengers because of the destruction they caused. The destruction that was set up throughout this entire movie is part of the villain's motive. And that's what makes him a great villain. He's not there to fight. He's not there just to crumble the world. He's there to break up the Avengers. And that's what makes him a great villain. He's not there to be this big old threat. He's there just for a small thing that makes a big impact. Which is why Captain America Civil War is my favorite out of all the Captain America movies. But with that, that was my ranking of all 8 Captain America movies. If you liked this video, maybe leave those on the side of this too. Like, subscribe, and see you guys next time. Goodbye.